Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. It's 4 minutes after the hour on this, the 14th day of January in the Lord's year 2014. And just a few moments ago, it was 1:14.
Oh, yeah.
1 o'clock.
Yep.
14 minutes after, 14 seconds on 2014.
Yes.
And it takes baby blocks for me to figure that out. So glad to have that
I like
done.
it.
Tom Coates in the house on this Tuesday. When we talk a little politics, we uncork it and let it loose. And you all know the voice, Frank. Today we are announcing that, well, Frank, it's your announcement. You make it.
Well, I'm going to try to start a show here soon called Frankly...
No, you're not going to try. Come on, Tom. Give him that old I can
Starting
attitude.
a show...
I'll slap him in the head, Mac.
Please.
How about that? Game going.
Starting a show here soon called Frankly Speaking.
Live.
Where I merge
Frankly
faith
speaking,
and politics.
live. You have to say live.
Live.
I got you the URL with live on the end.
But I'm going to be trying to merge faith and politics,
Uh-oh.
which not many people attempt to do.
Well, you know, there's some people out there who are pretty successful at it. Steve Deace is successful at it. Glenn Beck is successful at it. You know, there's some conservatives and all those liberals who, you know, have no faith, so they do it quite well.
They have
in
a
fact.
faith, Mac.
They have a faith?
They have a faith. It's different than your and my faith, but they have a faith.
Well, what are you, an advocate for the weird and crappy now?
No, I'm saying they have faith in a government. They have faith in the secular government to provide. They have faith in other things. They just don't have faith in the God Almighty that you and I share.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. Still makes them crappy. All right. And our guest today, Mr. Will Rogers, here for the first time this year. How are you, Mr. Rogers?
I'm just wonderful. I living the dream. Living the dream.
That's what you always say. I thought you'd be up on the hill.
I was actually. I've got
Okay.
some little gifts here that we can discuss a little bit later today. But I've been up at the state capitol today. And
Because you are, one of your jobs is you are
the director of government affairs for the Iowa-Nebraska Equipment Dealers Association.
Yeah.
And we represent the farm, construction, and industrial equipment dealers and distributors in here in Iowa.
Well, that's actually the group that actually pays you a salary.
Believe it or not, they actually pay me. I mean, it's...
Some of the other things you do, you don't get a paycheck, but
No.
you get a paycheck from these folks.
All right, now, Frank, I want you to watch here. This is a classic hit and run. Are you ready for this? Okay. So, Will, it's nice to have you here, and you work for the equipment dealer. So what do you think about legalized pot in Iowa?
You know, I think the Chicago Bears next year, if they get their defense back in order, they're going to do great.
Well, and that new little cubby mascot, isn't he cute?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Don't ever do that, Frank. You don't win
that
friends.
was a drive-by.
Yeah, you don't win friends. Will you guys get into that if it becomes something that's handled by the state? Because it looks like that's a state-by-state decision.
You know, actually, it's a really interesting thing. We haven't really discussed it, but the majority of the companies that I work for have employee handbooks that restrict, obviously, alcohol consumption. You know, you can't drink while you've been on the job,
Right.
you know, and perform your job duties. And then also the usage of any other illicit drugs is strictly prohibited as well and is grounds for termination, especially if you're in a safety-sensitive position. Just as someone that's driving a truck, like a semi that weighs 80,000 pounds as it's driving down the road, those people are actually drug tested specifically under federal law that requires them so that they're not high and out operating a motor vehicle.
Okay, but if does anybody here disagree with me that in 2 to 6 years we're going to have legalized marijuana in almost every state in the union? Tom, you disagree? Frank?
I don't know, Mac. I mean,
for heaven's sakes, if we can have gay marriage, we can certainly grow pot.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have thought gay marriage would be in Iowa, so anything's possible, I guess.
It's possible. I think that timetable might be a little bit ambitious, and in fact, I'm not sure it's inevitable. I think there's a lot of us that believe that the way that the media is pressing that the gay marriage issue is going to be a tough one to beat. I don't know about marijuana. You know, it's a funny thing about marijuana. You won't get it from the press. But the actual usage of marijuana in recent years has actually declined, especially amongst the young. You would think that they're all lighting up. But when you look at some of what the usage figures are, actually the younger generation in the last decade or so has actually declined in the amount of usage they're doing. So it may not be as inevitable as you think.
Two things that I would note to Tom on that is I would agree that the usage is down. And not that I'm aware of this, but that I understand that the cost of it has become dramatically increased, and that's put it out of the reach of
That's interesting.
kids in high school. They don't have the type of money, as well as other illicit drugs.
Well, but here's what you've got. You've got marijuana that's being engineered now. And so you no longer have what we would call Iowa ditchweed. You actually have plants, farms that grow this, and it's a hybrid, and so it's much more powerful. But if I'm in the agriculture business, if I'm in the agricultural business, and that's my business, okay, I'm yelling, "Go marijuana, go!" Because you can grow marijuana.
I think a couple of things. Two things. If I grow corn or wheat or barley or some other type of grain that may eventually be turned into, whether it be whiskey or beer or even grapes for wine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Marijuana is primarily strictly grown and consumed for mind-altering, it's used by people to alter their mind or their mood. Okay,
It's a hallucinogenic.
And there was a great book on this. The same gentleman that wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma, Michael Pollard, I think is his name, wrote a book called The Botany of Desire. And they actually had I believe even a PBS mini series episodes on it. And it basically talked about 4 different types of plants that man has coexisted with over a long period of time. And actually both the plant and man kind of have grown, become better as a result of it. One of it is the corn plant is a great example. The original maize plant looks nothing like the corn plant we grow today in terms of the size, because we've been able to go in and to turn on specific traits in that corn plant. There's about 120,000 pairs of genomes in a corn plant. And I know we're going way down the rabbit's hole, but you can turn on those traits, and the biotech companies have been able to do that. Plus, there's genetically modified crops. But those plants have benefited from our behavior and interaction with them. Apples is another good example of that. East Peru, Iowa, which is the home of the delicious red apple, the most consumed apple in North America, is actually, again, the guy who actually first grew it actually tried to kill the plant.
Really?
And eventually it became the most prolific
So
apple.
what are you saying, Will?
Marijuana, as Max said, has actually become from the ditchweed now to this highly potent, various calibers of usage. There's a whole plethora of. They were on one of the television shows. They were going through a pot dispensary in Colorado and talking about the various names and qualities that you might enjoy while using using marijuana. And one of the good examples was this one will smell like rose buds and taste like mellow yellow pop, and this one will taste like, and it's almost like drinking wine or beers or something else, or good scotch will have different flavor profiles. And the same thing was with the marijuana. And so the marijuana plant is actually benefited greatly from its coexistence with human beings. It's kind of an interesting sidebar to go down.
Well, a New York Times article here a couple years ago was saying that the way they're growing it and the processes that they're growing it, that it's 25 times more powerful than the weed that was smoked in the 70s, and 10 times as potent as what was just smoked in the 90s. So they've taken this stuff to a level that we,
But and maybe there's just flies in my biblical worldview and my conservative social Republican values. But the old adage is, if you don't want something, make it legal and tax the heck out of it. If you do want something, then keep it underground. If we really don't want our kids using marijuana, let's put an age limit on it. Let's figure out how to test it. Let's make a heck of a lot of money for the state of Iowa and the United States government, and let's get it off. Let's get all these people out of our jails and our prisons that are in jail for selling a bag of weed.
You know what? Let me put it this way. I know a young gentleman that got caught here a couple years ago with several ounces of marijuana he'd brought back from Colorado. And he was released on his own recognizance and had to pay a fairly decent fine, but also was restricted to probation for 1 year. And now he's moved back to Colorado and he's back there doing his thing. My point is, the people, our jails aren't full with marijuana users. That's just. That's not the case anymore.
The hard drugs are what they're.
It's the meth. It's the crack. It's the other really detrimental, life-destroying narcotics that people are getting locked up for.
If the marijuana were not illicit, guys, would the marijuana travel in the same circles as those drugs? I guess that's one of the questions I've got. Is it necessarily a gateway into the harder stuff, or is it only traveling there because it's illicit and the same kind of dealers might deal one that would deal the other?
I actually would think that's the case. I think, in your sense, I think there would be the other harder drugs would probably have their emphasis, and I think marijuana would be kind of in a category. It's not going to be lumped in with alcohol. I mean, alcohol has been a socially accepted form of and it's a drug.
Well, if you listen to Ron Paul, it's everything's fair game.
Well,
you don't drive down the road at 90 miles an hour. You don't get upset and swing at somebody. It is a drug that causes passivity. Is that the right word?
Passivity.
And it is not addictive.
Not physically addictive. I think you could argue there may be a psychological addiction.
Try to give it up.
Well,
Ricky Williams.
I just want to solve some problems in this country, and it sounds like if we could put less people in jail.
Ricky Williams was a famous football running back for the Miami Dolphins who basically come to a crossroads in his career where he was faced with keeping $1 million football career or stop smoking marijuana, and he chose to smoke marijuana.
And why you say that, I don't think it was the marijuana. I think Ricky had some greater issues. I think marijuana was just one of the things that he had allowed himself to. I think he was kind of a nut job. Let's just put it that way.
Well, won't argue that.
Yeah. So. Well, anyway,
Mac, would you agree with my statement that not physically addictive but psychologically addictive?
Absolutely.
For many people?
I think no matter what it is, I think we all recognize people have addictive personalities and addictive behaviors. If it's not drugs or alcohol, it's gambling, it's pornography, it could be working out. People replace those with another type of, working out, whereas it may be very healthy for you. There's people that become addicted to, they replace one addiction with the other.
Yeah, I'm going to be 55 this year. I have not had a drink in 1,346 days, but I will tell you in the last year, the first thing I think of when I wake up is a cup of coffee. And much like that same desire I had at 5:30 in the afternoon driving home, I now have first thing when I wake up. I want to go make, of course, I'm a press guy, so I make really yuppie coffee. But so, yeah, you're right. I mean, we changed from one to the other. Will Rogers is our guest today. Frank the Voice is in, and it's Tom Coates on a Tuesday. Ryan's producing, and I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Coming back live with Chris Christie on KTIA, Iowa.
There are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
21 minutes after the hour on the 14th day of January in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Tuesday edition of Max World. Tom Coates in the house, along with Frank the Voice, who's got a brand new show coming on Webcast One Live called Frankly Speaking Live, in which he's going to, catch this, Will, he's going to mix politics and religion successfully. He's going to try. So he's in here training from the best political conversationalists we have with Tom Coates and Will Rogers. So we're glad to have you here. In a minute, we're going to talk a little bit about the Chris Christie thing. He did his State of the Union or State of the State address today, and the headline says, "No more breach of trust." This after that traffic scandal that we had to deal with. But before we go there, let's go to the phones where we have... Go ahead.
Jessica.
Jessica.
Yep.
All right. Jessica, you're live on the radio. How are you today?
Hey, Mac. It's Jessica. How are you?
Good, Jessica. How are you?
Good. I had a comment for Tom regarding his question whether it was marijuana was addictive or not.
Okay. Tom, can you hear her?
I can. We were just hunting up a set of headphones for Will, but I can hear her fine.
Awesome. So, Tom, you questioned whether you thought that it was a psychological addiction or maybe a physical addiction, and kind of maybe are doubting that it's a physical addiction.
Mac made the comment that I was responding to that it wasn't addictive, and I said perhaps not physically addictive, but psychological. I guess that was my rhetorical question. I believe it is psychologically addictive. Do you believe? And I'm no expert. Are you have evidence that it's also physically addictive?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm actually in college right now studying to be an addiction counselor.
Okay.
So my study of substance abuse and substances, I definitely, from my research, have found that it is something that is physically addictive. Also, from experience, shamefully, I say that I smoked marijuana for many, many years. And it was something that was very hard for me to quit doing.
All right. Now, how do you define physically addictive versus the psychological addiction? I mean, are we talking about tell me what you experienced and what your studies have revealed.
Well, for me personally, and I've also worked in a treatment center with addicts who were there for marijuana addiction, along with other things as well. But I don't know if you've ever smoked cigarettes or if you ever know someone that smokes cigarettes, but that's an addiction. It's a physical addiction.
Yes.
You get addicted to nicotine. I believe that the symptoms and the feelings are pretty similar in my own experience of the jitteriness, the headaches, the withdrawal feelings of wanting it, desiring it, needing it. It wasn't just a physical habit of, smoking a cigarette. You have your times. A nicotine addict has their times when they smoke. They smoke after they eat. They smoke when they wake up in the morning. They smoke when they drink. What's palate, rather palate type situation. So it's the same thing with marijuana. I would say physically those same symptoms are the same as well of the withdrawal.
All right. So when you're addicted, how often did you smoke to at least satisfy both the physical and the psychological cravings? How often would you do that?
If I could do it, all day.
Okay.
I remember specifically working a job that I was doing collections for a large company I will not mention. And I would leave for lunch and go and do that, and I would come back high as a kite. Just to be able to function and do my job.
Okay, and if you were prevented from doing it for whatever reason, the symptoms that you experienced on some level of withdrawal were what?
Headaches, irritability, at times nausea, stomach aches, shaking. I mean, it was definitely a very physical withdrawal.
Okay, all right, Mac, you're kind of an addictions semi-expert. You have questions?
I'm just in the research department. I'm no expert. I smoked dope in my day. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I tried to. And Jessica, by the way, thanks for the call. I appreciate you giving us a call today. We did a little in college. Danny Marvin and I did it under the bridge in Beatrice in high school a little bit. I never liked any type of smoke. I mean, I tried to get hooked on cigars like you. Well, I'm not hooked, but I like to hang around with you so you have your cigar club, and I can't take smoke.
Now, you understand that it is my testimony and Will's testimony and the other guys that actually only smoke cigars that we are not addicted, that we can, I can walk away, Will, and not smoke a cigar for weeks, and it's not a big
Will Rogers
deal.
smoked his last cigar on January 4th, 2013.
Okay.
Now, Will, I just made a statement that I think is true. Now, I do not equate the addictions that the cigarette smokers have and the difficulty they have.
I think there's different types of. I don't know that there may be certainly people that are again addicted to smoking cigars.
I don't know of any.
I will tell you, I chewed tobacco for 13 years, and on like December or something, 1995, I quit. And I've never done it since. Now I can tell you at that time, and for several years after, I'd have a dream where I was chewing tobacco, or I would walk by it in a grocery store and see it, and I'd go, maybe I should get some. Oh, I'm going to go fishing. Maybe I should.
Were you a baseball player?
I did, but I didn't.
A lot of baseball players picked that up.
It was something else. But my point is that cigars, I think that you have, in a lot of cases, people have an addictive behavior to begin with, and then they have alcohol, they have tobacco, but from what I understand, heroin, cigarettes are just about as addictive as heroin.
I've heard that.
In terms of the recidivism that goes on, people quit and they end up having to go back and smoke.
Yeah, I won't have a cigar today. I didn't have one yesterday. I won't have one tomorrow. I'll have one if I get around to it, go to the club on Friday. But that's not what I would consider an addiction.
Well, isn't cigars basically smoke for flavor as opposed to inhaling in your lungs?
That's right.
And getting high?
You're still getting
some
chemical in your blood. You're still getting nicotine, and that's why the doctors told me. The doctor specifically that told me this is also a guy who smokes, several cigars a day, and is a heart cardiologist. And he said, "Will, you need to quit smoking cigars."
But they have done studies, Will, that show that when they've analyzed the cigarette smokers and cigar smokers, they assume that the same kind of nicotine would be in the system of the cigar smokers, and they didn't find it. And they didn't understand why people even smoke cigars because they assumed it was an addiction, which goes back to my statement.
Right.
It is, you do not inject the kind of nicotine that makes it an addictive substance like we would with cigarettes.
Up the amount of chemical that's in a cigarette versus a cigar. The chemicals that are put in cigarettes are put there to make them addictive.
All right. Help me understand. How do you explain, and this is not a rhetorical question, how do you explain the fact that for 52 years, I never drank coffee? I mean, I was a morning guy. I was up at 3:30 in the morning, and I never drank coffee. Never drank pop, caffeine. I just didn't need it. Mm-hmm. Now I will actually wake up craving a cup of coffee, and I will have less than one. Less than one. Is that the psychological addiction that you think of?
Yes.
I would think so. I mean, if you were drinking all day, I would think that and caffeine is very addictive. I've heard a lot of stories, people that drink a lot of pop or drink coffee, and they try to get off of it for whatever reason, and it is very addictive. But it doesn't sound like you are into that physical addiction. You're more into a psychological addiction of wanting to get up and have that coffee.
But there's people that let's say you went a day or 2 days without drinking that coffee in the morning, or you drink a decaf product, you may experience a headache. I know a lot of people. I know personally for myself, I haven't drank caffeine for over 10 years now. This is my caffeine-free diet
Coca-Cola.
pop here, and I have not drank caffeine for over 10 years. I will tell you that when I went through withdrawal, I guess is the best way, I experienced a pretty good headache for about 2 or 3 days, and then after that,
migraine headache.
Yeah.
So did you drink coffee prior to your alcohol?
No, I never drank coffee. My parents had coffee every morning. I never had coffee. I always told people, do you think my staff wants me on caffeine? I mean, really? You think I need that? And I don't really like the caffeine part of it. It's just that hot, warm taste in my mouth in the morning. So anyway, all right. We got 3 minutes. Do you still have time to share this?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I want to share this with you. So today was day number 2 of the Iowa legislative session, and Governor Branstad was giving the State of the State speech today, but also to join us at the State House this year was, once again, the Citizens for Community Improvement. And
Citizens for
Community
CCI.
Improvement.
CC.
And so this year they sent out a welcome back legislators card, and as you open it up, it has this nice little thing it says here. But inside the card, you can't see it too well. There's a little bit of static there, but it shows some runoff occurring into a farm field. And the card actually goes on to say, stand up to the Iowa Farm Bureau and those that oppose fair standards for clean water and funding for Iowa's natural resources and outdoor recreation trust fund. And then anyway, they gave this out to all the legislators. I was able to snag one of these extra cards floating around, and I honestly thought the Citizens for Community Improvement had done something worth noting once again this year. They do every year come up to the State House and beat on their drums and blow their vuvuzuelas and yell really loudly in the rotunda and clog up the place and and march around. They had people wearing, Dr. Seuss hats, the Cat in the Hat hats, and a big pig hat.
These are people that are devoid of any real substance in their lives.
And they don't come up there with one or two issues, although this is actually probably one of the better issues they've talked about. But they come up with 100 different issues, and it's their messaging is everywhere, all over the place.
Because it's a conglomerate of crazies and zealots that all have their own agendas, and so you got to it's kind of like the Democratic Party. You got to kind of mesh all of the people with all these disparate priorities together and make them kind of coalesce. I saw them. We went to this thing where Mike Lee and Sarah Palin were out at the fairgrounds a few months back. The Iowa Faith and Freedom event. Were you there, Will?
I wasn't, but I go ahead, Tom.
And there was the same group. I'm sure some of the same nut jobs out there. And and some of the people I was with say, "Well, let's stop and engage him." I said, "No. And I thought I'd gotten clear, but one of them spotted me and then started making comments about me and the credit and all of this, and I couldn't quite duck in the building fast enough to escape their scrutiny.
Well, you know who's one of their mouthpieces, and you know who it is. It's Bruce Stone.
Oh,
we used to play poker with him all the time.
Bruce or Bill?
Bruce Stone, and
Stone. I'm sorry, yeah.
Bruce Stone, and he was a friend of mine.
You use that in the past tense? I mean, you just did. Was that intentional? I mean, I met Bruce through you a few times, but I didn't know him.
I don't look for an opportunity to spend time with anymore. I blocked on my Facebook. He's just so atheist and so heathenistic and so liberal and so.
Well, back when you were drinking and you had your 98.3, you would have Bruce Stone on the show once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's how I first met him. And
I called him the world's biggest liberal, and he is. All right, we're up to a break. Will Rogers is in the house along with Frank, getting his show ready. Frankly Speaking Live. Tom Coates here, and we're coming back. What's the deal with Chris Christie? I mean, is this just a media spun thing, or is this a big deal? Does this change history? We'll talk about it next, live on KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture. That we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money-back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Twenty-two minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Mike Mudloff, Pastor Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church at 4 o'clock, and we'll talk about a little bit of his preaching in that hour. We appreciate him being a part of KTIA. Will Rogers is in the house along with Frank, the voice, as Tom Coates and I do our usual Tuesday show on politics. Chris Christie. Tell me if I get this right. The governor opposes him. Or was it the governor? Oh, he's the governor.
He's the governor.
Who opposed him? The DOT guy or something like that?
Well, ostensibly, this Democrat mayor, there in New Jersey is the one that some of the staffers sought to punish, and that's an odd thing, but yes.
So some staffers decided that they would do something with the traffic lights, and they'd make a real mess of a traffic jam one afternoon.
Fort Lee, New Jersey, yeah.
No, it's the bridge.
The bridge.
The bridge in Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Okay. We find this out. He fires two people, the people that were responsible for this. But now you hear the liberal media calling for his head on a platter. Will, first of all, if he had ever decided or chose to seek a Republican nomination for president, is this a big deal? I mean, are the liberals going to be able to make this into a big deal?
Well, I find this as a good example. He was a media darling to the liberal media because of. Maybe they didn't love him, but, they liked the fact that they felt like he, when the last election cycle, when they had the Hurricane Sandy, that he did reach out to President Obama, and some people blamed him for Mitt Romney's loss. I mean, I want to say a lot of people, but there's a few people that think that by him embracing Obama, for federal help, hurt Mitt Romney. But, the media liked him. They like him. But when I say they liked him, they didn't love him. He's not the chosen one, President Obama.
Kind of like a John McCain.
Like, that's exactly where I'm going. And John McCain, they'd love to build him up and make him the Republican hero or to themselves, and then they tear him down.
And then he thought he was going to get a pass by the media when he ran for president, and it was just the opposite. Now, the suspicion here, Will, with Chris Christie, is that he was, and this maybe goes to the psychology of the man and his thinking, he was vetted by Mitt Romney
yes.
As a vice presidential candidate. We are told they found some problems in his background, and they passed on him. Now, ostensibly, this created an atmosphere where he was resentful. He was a keynote speaker at the one night at the Republican convention, delivered a rather lackluster speech, didn't even mention Romney, talked about his own self. People were quite incensed at that. And then on the heels of that, here comes the hurricane, where he comes in and he embraces Obama and walks down the beach with him and does what he can. I mean, I don't know that he's responsible, but he certainly didn't help Mitt Romney out. And some people suspected at that point that this was his idea of payback because he wasn't selected as the VP. What's your thought on that?
That's reading into the tea leaves, so to speak, or seeing things beyond what they really are. And I don't know. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting is that he's been accused of being a bully, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The people in New Jersey, there's certain groups that have, been on the opposite side of an issue from him, and they accuse him of being a bully.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one way you can describe somebody when they're beating you on an issue, right? I mean, I don't know that he's a bully or not a bully, but one of the things is there's this possible, and this is, I think, pardon me, the East Coast way of doing political payback, I guess, to people. And you shut down a bridge, or you get rid of somebody's funding, or you throw in and something that's going to be a detriment to them later on politically. Okay, and I don't know that that's something that people around the rest of the country are used to, but I think it's been a part of the culture in other parts of the country. Maybe you look in Chicago or parts of Illinois.
For that kind of politics.
For that
Now,
kind of
it
politics.
just came out yesterday that Hillary Clinton actually has a scoring system for Democrats that have been supportive or non-supportive. It goes like 1 to 7.
Enemy list.
Yeah, in essence, an enemy list. When you're now, again, I don't expect the media is going to pick this up, but this is taking what they're accusing Chris Christie of to another level and being very vindictive and precise about who you're going to give payback to and who you're not going to.
Well, I can tell you here in Iowa that there was a candidate that ran for office at one point, and I'm not going to name any names.
Okay.
But they ran for a high-level elected office, and at the end of the night, they kept an enemies list, and at the end of the evening, they would have their staff meeting and phone calls. People would call in, and they had a whiteboard that they would flip over, and on the back of the whiteboard was another area where they would keep the enemies list on there. And they actually, if somebody made you mad, didn't do what you wanted to do when you wanted them to do it, they put you on the list.
And of course, Nixon is the most known figure that
Right.
had an enemies list. What are you going to say, Frank?
My personal opinion on this is much to do about nothing. I think, I don't know how you guys feel, but this is another attempt for the Democrats to try to hand select our candidate. They hand fed us McCain. Then they turned around and hand-fed us Romney, and I think they're by process of elimination trying to take these guys out because Christie will probably be the strongest guy against Hillary if she chooses to run. But if you take any of these, if you take this scandal of Chris Christie and you lay that scandal over any number of a half a dozen of Obama scandals.
Or Clinton's.
And just sit back and muse at the selected outrage of the media, and the fact that they're going bonkers over this, and Andrea Mitchell on TV swore today that the Democrats are not going to let this go, but yet and then you got the revelations in the Gates book that talks about how in front of him, Hillary and Obama got into a little tit for tat where she was opining that she had to oppose the surge in Iraq for political reasons because she was running a primary in Iowa against Obama. And Gates said he could not believe that they were literally talking about this, in front of him. And it leads to the question, we can't get the truth out of these two people over Benghazi. So how do we expect to get the truth out of these guys for anything? But it just muses me that
the problem, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, the problem is that, again, we go back to, and for lack of a better term, the low information voter, right?
I love it.
They're going to hear maybe one or two things on the nightly news or in the paper or something like that, and that's what they're going to believe. They're going to believe that this is something that he had his hands all over and that he's a mean bully and this is political payback and that he knew about it. Why wouldn't he have known about it?
Well, here's the thing. Chris Cuomo of Dennis Rodman fame basically said on his program one afternoon that these people that Christie fired, and actually there was a third person that he suggested not run for something, so there was actually 3 heads that rolled. But Cuomo said that how could this be, because these people were hand selected and they were his heart and hands, quote. Okay, is Lois Lerner Obama's heart and hands? How about Eric Holder? How about Kathleen Sebelius? How about any number of other people who
Rice and others. Let me ask you both: if the Democrats push for this hard, does it make it difficult for them to oppose the investigations that should go forward on the issues that Frank's been talking about, Benghazi, the IRS scandal, and so forth?
If you want me to answer that first, I would say Democrats want to live by a different set of rules. So no, it doesn't make it hard at all.
No kidding. If I'm a Republican or if I'm a Democratic strategist, I'm going to put that 8-second clip of Hillary Clinton going berserk at the committee meetings, pounding her fists and going, what does it really matter?
What difference does it make?
What difference does it make? And I'm going to put that cut in after everything that the president would have to do. And there's no way the low information voter could ever vote for her. You could never make her look good enough. Or am I wrong? Well, coming up on our last break, we'll be back with, of course, Will Rogers, Tom Coates, Frank, and me. Thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Powered by webcast1live.com. This is KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Minutes for the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff with True Blue. Will Rogers in the house today, along with Tom Coates and Frank, the voice, and we've got caucuses, next 6 days?
Tuesday, January the 21st, 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's everybody in the state of Iowa. Here in Polk County, I'm the Polk County Republican chairman. You can find your caucus location and information. That's going to be at www.polkgop.com. Again, that's polkgop.com. Go to that website. Up at the top, there's a link. You can click on there. You can find your, if you know what precinct you're in, you can find your location. Some of you may want to participate in the caucuses. There's obviously Central Committee that night. We do not have the preferential poll for the president, so we don't do that. But we still elect members to our Central Committee. We also elect delegates and alternates to our county convention. Also nominate and accept junior delegates, and then we also work on our platform. So if you're passionate about issues, you'll want to come to the caucus and include some thoughts on the platform as well.
All right, that's next Tuesday, the 21st?
Yes.
20th, 21st.
Let me throw
The
this
21st.
out. I've heard it twice now in the last week. There have been some studies that show that the number of people that refer to themselves as independents in this country has gone up in recent years. And yet the reality is that many of those people that are calling themselves independents truly are not independents now. That the numbers that call themselves independent are much less independent than they were 10, 20 years ago. But that in many cases they have vacated the official Republican label. They're still very conservative. They would vote the similar as they were, but they don't like the label. They don't like having to take the abuse that they did. But the thing is, this will not allow them, if they take this label on as now I'm an independent thinker, I'm an independent, will not allow them participate in the caucuses unless they declare themselves to be a member of the Republican Party, will it?
Yeah, if you come into the caucus, you actually have to be registered as a Republican, or you can do, under Iowa law, same-day voter registration and fill out a registration form that night and register as a Republican. If you want to go back and switch your party affiliation, you're more than welcome to do that. If you'd like to, we encourage you to stay a Republican and continue to be an active part of growing our party. And if you don't like something about it, stick around and help change it. And I really do believe this, that we need more people with diverse ideology in the Republican Party. We're not going to always agree on every issue or every direction, but I will say right now, in why a lot of people have become independents, it's because our brand has been damaged, both by our own people, but also at the same time, we've allowed the liberal media and the Democrats to define who we are.
Well, I appreciate you taking the high road. You're a gentleman. It's one of the reasons I like having you on this show. But the second part is the truth. I don't know we've damaged anything beyond different than the Democrats have damaged.
Well, when we've
got a liberal media machine that just stomps on us.
When we have an opportunity to actually define who we are, we do some pretty dumb things.
Well, speaking for myself, Are
you a registered Republican?
Yes, I have. Speaking for myself, I find that the Democratic part or the Republican Party is really taking the conservative wing of the party for granted. And it just seems like to me that they keep alienating because they want to be Democrat light. You know, they're trying to co-opt Democratic issues to enlarge their tent. And I'd just like to ask you guys a question, because this is the way I size the run in 2016, and I don't think the Democrats have the same issue. Some people are speculating Hillary may get a run from the left, but it looks like to me that we'll get Chris Christie or Jeb Bush for the establishment pick. And you'll have a Ted Cruz-like person that will be the conservative wing of the party, and then you're going to have the Rand Paul, who's going to be, the candidate for the legalize the pot smoking crowd. And I don't see a similar thing going on in the Democratic Party, and I think this is tearing our party in two, or tearing it into thirds, because I just don't see these Rand Paul people who, I don't see them going into the voting booth and pushing the button for a McCain, a Romney, a Christie, a Jeb Bush.
Well, now, I'm not sure that Rand Paul takes the full flag up for his dad. I think he's got a little bit more mainstream sense than his dad. But I think maybe the best illustration we could use in recent history is the Cuccinelli thing out there. And that particular race could have been won, and instead we have a protege of Hillary and Bill Clinton in that position because the Republican establishment refused to give him the resources and support that I think by any measure at least in the afterglow, he could have won that race. Will, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree that Ken Cuccinelli should have been elected governor. We as a party shot ourselves in our own foot. I mean, we're dying from our own self-inflicted wounds, okay? No question about that. And I look at this particular race, and that is, look, we have to all agree that we're not going to agree on everything. It's the libertarians, the social conservative or evangelical Christian part of the party, the establishment party, the fiscal conservatives, the small, the business coalition people. We're all under this tent together, and we're not all going to see eye to eye on the issues or what's the most critically important thing we need to be talking about at any one given time. But with that being said, when we have an opportunity to win an office, we need to all pull together. And I think that honestly, people, especially out in Virginia and other people around the country in leadership, paid attention to that loss and are learning from that loss. And I think
Mitt Romney certainly wasn't my cup of tea last go around, but I went in the booth and pushed the button for him. And a lot of my fellow Christians didn't. They couldn't handle the guy. And this is where I get back to where they're hand-selecting our candidates for us.
And again, the process is, and maybe not so much for the president, but I can tell you right here in central Iowa, if you want to find somebody to run for office and support that person and work hard for them, you can position that person to win. You know, you can go out and make a difference in influencing the political process. A handful of people can do that.
Not just one or two.
Not just one or two. I mean, it takes more than one or two enthusiastic people to help somebody get elected or win a primary. But, you know, if you find somebody that matches up with you politically, get out there and help them out.
Will Rogers, I'd love to have you back here in a couple weeks after the caucuses next Tuesday. I know that I'll be out there active in my caucus for a candidate, and he asked me to step forward for him, so I'm going to do that. Kind of unfamiliar ground for me as the media guy. I'm usually in the back listening to what everybody else says, so I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I may just follow the Obama trail and just give stuff away free if you vote for my guy and promise things that there's no way I could ever deliver, but make it sound so tempting that the, what do you call them? Stupid voter? No. Uninformed.
Low information voter.
Low information voter like them. Okay. Tom, thanks for being here. Frank, get ready. Your show's coming. Ryan, thanks for producing. Will, thanks for being my guest. And
Pleasure.
I'm J. Michael McCoy. Until I see you again, do me one favor. Just one. Just pray.